Ross. I'm here to represent Congresswoman Yvette Clarke on our final IRS Tax Tuesday event, a virtual event. Pull up your seat, pull up your pens and paper. We're going to have a very intuitive and informative event, a virtual event specifically geared towards our nonprofits, our churches, and our community based organizations as it pertains to the IRS. The person that we'll be bringing to the floor is Mr. Brian Wozniak. Mr. Brian Wozniak works with the IRS. He's one of our previous presenters from the Congressional District Liaison area. I'm going to bring him on board. Mr. Wozniak, please announce yourself, and now the floor is yours.
Thank you, Orlando, and good afternoon. I assume the audio is coming in loud and clear. Welcome to all the folks participating in this, our third event. It is a Tax Tuesday series, and today's topic, as Orlando mentioned, is tax-exempt organizations. You may hear them referred to as nonprofits, charitable organizations, generally all falling under that umbrella as far as the IRS is concerned as a tax-exempt organization. Now, before we get into the specifics of today's presentation, there are really three items I would just like to recap. First of all, in fact, I would like to thank Representative Clarke for the opportunity to meet with you folks, her constituents in the New York metro area, and provide this information. So thank you to her and all of her staff for the support. The next item is, I mentioned that this is the third in a series of events. Now, we delivered an event last Tuesday on April 18th, I believe that was, and then we delivered one the week before that on April 13th. And those events have been saved. The video recordings are available on Representative Clarke's Facebook site, and you can go back and review that information. I bring that up because when you look at today's agenda, we've actually already covered in great depth filing season resources. Of course, the filing season, the deadline was last Tuesday, April 18th, but you still may have issues, and there's a lot of information there to help you with things from, how to pay or set up a payment plan if you owe money, trying to avoid tax scams, using reputable preparers, etc. So a bunch of resources there. Where to find free tax help, resources in other languages other than English, etc. So you can always go back and view one of those previously recorded programs for filing resources. And I also want to mention, contained in those two previous programs, we talked about job opportunities, not only at the IRS, but at the entire federal government. And you'll see that there are some slides there where we talked about the USA Jobs website. It's simply usajobs.gov. It is a website where you can apply for federal jobs. You can do a search by your local area there, find all the local federal jobs within a certain distance to a radius of your house or where you live, etc., and apply for jobs. And that website is updated on a regular basis. It is continuously being updated. So we recommend that you check the website at least once a week. If you're actively pursuing employment with the federal government, to go there, check that once a week. Now, let's get right into the meat and potatoes. We'll go to our first slide. We're going to stay on this slide for just a couple of minutes, so bear with me. This is the irs.gov webpage. If you simply went to www.irs.gov, this is what it shows. And from the main irs.gov webpage, there are many options. Not just tax-exempt entities, but everything. If you looked at the bottom of the slide, you can see there are links where you can file your taxes for free over the internet using IRS Free File, or it will link you to other resources where you can get in-person help. You can also create and sign into your irs.gov online account. You can check the status of your refund. You can get your tax records, get transcripts. You can find forms and instructions. You can check your federal tax withholding. That's a federal tax withholding estimator. It's an excellent tool to make sure you're having enough money withheld from your pay so that you don't end up owing at the end of the year. And in the very bottom right, back to the previous slide, just a second, there is a link for applying for an employer identification number. And that's kind of an important link. It applies for small business owners, self-employed individuals, corporations, partnerships, but it's also applicable for tax-exempt organizations, because many tax-exempt organizations are required to have an employer identification number. That's what you're going to look at. So that's part of the process. And then the final thing on this slide is in the upper right, you'll see that I've circled the link for charities and nonprofits, where if you click that link, it would bring you to the nonprofit page. And at the very top of this slide, you can also see the words tax exempt in quotations. You could also search in the search engine there. So the charities, clicking that link for charities and nonprofits will bring you to the main page. Now we'll go to the second slide. This is the centerpiece of the irs.gov webpage for charities and nonprofits. We're going to spend about 5 minutes on this slide, so bear with me. The first item is on the left side of the slide. You can see that there are various links that will explain things like the first one there is exempt organization types. The types of exempt organizations. There are multiple types of organizations, exempt organizations, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. There's a link that explains the life cycle of a tax-exempt organization. There's also links for the forms you have to file and the annual filing requirements of a nonprofit. Because nonprofit groups, tax-exempt entities, charitable organizations, they generally have a requirement to file a tax return. It's a Form 990, and there's a whole series of different 990s. There's a 990, a 990EZ, a 990-N postcard, etc. So that's going to explain some of the forms. The other links on the left there will talk about charitable contributions. There's generally two types of charitable contributions. There are cash contributions and non-cash contributions. Those would be gifts of property. There's a link there for how to search for charities. We're going to talk about this in a moment. And then there are many educational sessions you can view online. So those links listed on the left side of the screen are very helpful. But when you look at the page, you can see that there are three main boxes in the center. And the first box is for the tax exempt organization search tool. Tax exempt organization search tool. Sometimes people refer to it as TEOS, TEOS, tax exempt organization search tool. And you can use this tool. Everyone can use it. It's public information because tax exempt entities information is public information. Anyone in the public can use this tool to look up an organization's tax exempt status and their tax filings. And that's what the TEOS tool is there for. There may be individuals in the public who want to look and see they're getting ready to give a charitable donation to an organization. They want to make sure that they're a qualified organization. They can go to this link and look it up. And again, we're going to come back to that tax exempt organization search tool in about 5 minutes. But let's review more information on the main IRS .gov webpage for nonprofits. In the center box there is a link for the annual filing and forms. Again, this is similar to the link on the left because, of course, as I stated, many nonprofits have a requirement to file a 990 series tax return. And this resource explains all the different 990 forms, the filing requirements, and it gives tips to help you complete your annual filing requirement, your annual reporting and filing requirements. And I should state probably that the Internal Revenue Service has been issuing many news releases recently to remind thousands upon thousands of tax exempt organizations of their May 15th, 2023 filing deadline. So that's right. If you're a tax exempt organization, you probably already know this. Your filing deadline is May 15th of each year. Now back to this web page on the right side, you can see there's a link there as well to get an employer identification number and apply for tax exempt status and file returns. One thing I would mention, now don't be confused with the term employer identification number. Many businesses use that as well, but tax exempt entities generally have to secure an employer identification number. They may also have other requirements besides filing the tax exempt entity form 990 series form. For example, if they have employees, they may have to do payroll and make deposits and file the unemployment tax returns and all those related things for payroll. So make sure you're meeting your obligations. This link for the EIN is there. And there is also a link, with information to apply for tax exempt status down toward the bottom of this web page. I would say that resource outlines the steps that you need to follow when applying to become a tax exempt entity. And that includes filing the form 1023. Form 1023 is the form you need to submit to apply to be a tax exempt entity. And before you go through that process, you really need to figure out and determine what type of tax exempt status you want to be recognized as prior to applying. I'll talk a little bit more about this. Let's go to the next slide, because the next slide, this is really just a continuation of the same page, the other material that's available on the irs.gov charity and nonprofit webpage. There simply wasn't enough room to include it all in one slide. So looking further down, there's a link for charitable contributions. I talked about this a little bit already. It explains requirements related to cash contributions and non-cash contributions to a nonprofit group. The next section in the center of the slide is very important because it does explain the different types of tax exempt organizations. And there's 5 links there. The first one is for organizations that are organized and operated exclusively for either religious purposes, charitable purposes, scientific purposes, testing for public safety. There's a category for literary, educational, and then other specified purposes. So kind of specific use, specific purpose organizations. Now, the second category expands on churches and religious organizations because they are among the charitable organizations that may qualify for exemption from federal income tax under Section 501c3. Now, we haven't talked about 501c3. You've probably heard that reference. It is from the Internal Revenue Code. Internal Revenue Code, Section 501, paren C, paren 3, is the highest resource, the official resource that governs the taxation of nonprofit groups and charities. So churches and religious organizations, separate set of criteria there for qualified organizations. The third one listed there is for private foundations. These are typically organizations that have a single major source of funding. And it's usually a gift from either one corporation or one family. So they give a gift to this charitable organization. And then most private foundations primarily make grants rather than directly operating a charitable program. They just grant the money for certain purposes. On the right side, you can see there's a link for political organizations. This is where you get into committees, parties, associations, funds, just any organization that operates primarily for the purpose of either directly or indirectly accepting contributions and or making expenditures for an exempt function. And the last one there in the center group, then again, I'm referring to the exempt organization types in the bottom right there, other nonprofits. This is a catch-all. It's organizations that meet the requirements that may qualify for exemption under the other subsections. And it could be a section other than a 501c3. There are other tax exempt organizations, different code sections, but we're generally looking at civic leagues, social clubs, business leagues, labor organizations, social welfare organizations, some various other organizations there that are organized. And finally, at the bottom, you can see that there are many other resources, including education resources and guidance. At the very bottom there under education, there is a stayexempt.irs.gov link. So again, under education, stayexempt.irs.gov series. This is a series of web-based mini courses for new and existing tax-exempt organizations. Again, there are multiple web-based presentations, webinars already available on our website that are there for you to go and get much more detailed information on everything from applying and submitting that 1023 application and a bunch of other different items. Now, and there's also job aids that give you analysis and resources and other things like that. So let's take a look at the next page. I believe this is the TOS. One prior to that, please. I talked about the TOS, the tax exempt entity, tax exempt organization search tool, the online tool. So if you went to the main page, irs.gov page for charities and nonprofits, and clicked on that search tool, it would bring you to this page. And you can actually, search any organization in the US, look it up, see what their status is. It will often show their filings. It may include a letter of determination. I'll talk about that in a moment. And when you look at this search engine, the second item in the top center there is you can search by employer identification number. That is really the easiest way because the employer identification number is unique to the organization itself and will bring you right to that organization. But you can also search by a term, like a name of the entity. You can search by city, by state. Obviously, if you search by city, even in relatively smaller cities, you're probably going to get a lot of responses. So my one recommendation is it's easiest to search by employer identification number. But if you do a broader search, they are organized alphabetically. So you can scroll through and find the organization you're looking for. Now, on the next page, I just searched one of these last night and took it on the next web slide, please. I searched this last night and just picked a random tax exempt entity in my local area out here and put it up. Again, this is public information. It's all there. Every tax exempt entity has some information posted there. Just so happened, this one came up. Now, in the center of the screen, it shows the determination letter. This is a letter we send when an entity applies for tax exempt status. We send them a letter of determination that says we recognize you as a nonprofit group, etc. This is your tax exempt status. It gives whether you're a private foundation, public charity, religious group, etc. It will lay that out, and you could view the final letter for this organization here. At the top of the screen, you're going to see auto revocation list. Now, this is a little different. What happens is if an entity applies for tax exempt status and they don't keep up with their tax filings and meet their other requirements, we may remove them from the list. So in this case, and this is not uncommon, organizations stop functioning, they go out of business. I don't know what this one in particular is, but it's on the public database. And you can see that their tax exempt status was revoked. It looks like the date was May 15th of 2020. And then you look at the bottom, you can see their tax filings, the Form 990-N. That's one of the specific 990 series tax returns. It's an e-postcard. We call that an electronic postcard because it's filed electronically. And it's a relatively simple form to file. But then down below that, I can just see, guessing that this organization last filed in 2016. So they haven't been filing in some time. So maybe they're not in business anymore. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe they're just not continuing charitable operations. But whatever it is, they had applied, they had filed, they were a tax exempt entity for some period of time, but now they are on that revocation list. Now, with that revocation list, there's a lot that goes in there. I am going to defer to my other colleagues maybe to talk a little more about getting help, because sometimes the status is revoked and you need help getting resolution on that. There's multiple resources there for you, as well as the application process. But let's take a look at the next slide real quick. And I believe this slide contains resources of the life cycle. I talked about the life cycle link. Very useful information here. It starts with starting out, getting the organization started. Right in that first item there, number one, starting out. It's not just federal government. You have to be organized under state law and meet all your requirements across the board. Then there's a section on applying for exemption, your filings, etc. Let's look at the next slide. This is your resources. Give you some links to get started. On top of everything we discussed was simply going to the main landing page and using all those valuable tools that are readily available right now. Here's some direct links you have. You have the link for all the interactive training. That first link there on interactive training, it has 10 webinar courses that really provide a wealth of information to you there. If you're just starting out, that's a great starting point. Then there's a separate resource on applying and going through the step-by-step process to file the Form 1023, selecting what type of organization you're going to be, figuring out what your filing requirements are going to be. The third item there is a separate link specifically for churches and religious organizations. And then the last bulleted item there is the Small Business and Self-Employed Tax Center, and that's for all small businesses and self-employed entities. Now, these charities and nonprofits may not be a quote-unquote business per se, because they're not in business to make money, but they may have some of the similar requirements. Like I said, you may, a tax-exempt entity may have employees, and there's rules that apply for all employees, whether you're a tax-exempt entity or a regular business. And the very last item at the bottom of the slide there, you can see there's a phone number for the IRS tax-exempt customer service account services. It's listed right there, 877-829-5500. And you can call them when you have questions, or if your account is already set up or there's a problem, they can help research it and take care of it with that. So now I am going to turn it back to Orlando. I think we're going to transition and go to our next speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Wozniak. It was a very informative conversation. Before we move forward, I just wanted to make a short announcement of events that are happening in the area of Congresswoman Yvette Clarke. I'm going to be adding our slideshow so that you will see all the different events that are up and coming. So that everyone knows, Congresswoman Clarke, along with the House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez, and also Congressman Dan Goldman will be presenting Academy Night. This is an opportunity for our young people to come out and learn all about service academies, nominations, processes, and other opportunities that are going to be happening on May 1st. And it's going to be from 6 to 8 p.m. at St. Francis College. We have the QR code that is on there. We really recommend, it's limited space. We were asking that everyone do the RSVP via your Eventbrite link, and we will be sharing that throughout the district shortly. In addition to that, Congresswoman will be doing a series of listening tours that will be happening throughout our district in collaboration with community boards in the community. Our first listening tour we have is for May 3rd, and it will be with Community Board 8, and it will be from 6:30 to 8 or 6 to 8 p.m. And it will be at the Crown Heights apartment at 1055 St. John's Place in Brooklyn, New York. Please, we will be sending these out directly to our constituents in those areas. On May 4th, we will be doing a listening tour with Community Board 14 at Brooklyn College, and it will be in the Brooklyn College area. It's going to be May 4th, Thursday, from 6 to 8 p.m. And next listening tour will be with Community Board 9, and that will be at the Major Owens Health Center. It will be on Thursday, June 29th from 6 to 8 p.m. As you can see, we have our QR codes there. We really would like for you to also fill out our community surveys so that we can really glean and find out exactly what it is that your issues might be or concerns might be from a federal lens. Keep in mind that these listening sessions will be specifically targeted to federal issues at hand. And our last one that we have for right now will be with Community Board 18, and it will be on June 16th at PS 251, the Patagat School on 1037 East 54th Street. So these are the different things that are happening within our district. Definitely, the Congresswoman wants to see you and try to find out more about what is your concerns or what are your ideas that you would like to express to her at these particular sessions. Now, the next person that I'll be bringing on is Mr. Ajati. He is from the Tax Advocacy Service Program. Mr. Advocacy will be the one to be talking about nonprofits and how you go about filing and getting your refunds and or just general information regarding his agency. Mr. Adjesi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Orlando, and good afternoon. My name is George Ajete. I'm the local taxpayer advocate for the Brooklyn Tax Office. And somebody may ask, what do we do? Taxpayer advocate, what do you do? How do you serve us? Right? For the taxpayer advocate, we are an independent organization within the Internal Revenue Service. We provide free services to all eligible taxpayers, including individual taxpayers, businesses, and nonprofits. We don't have any income limit for eligibility. So if you need our assistance, you just come to us and we will assist you. Our functions by law is to assist taxpayers to resolve tax problems with IRS. We also identify areas where taxpayers have problems dealing with the IRS. And then, to some extent possible, we also propose changes in the administrative practices of the IRS to mitigate those problems. We also identify potential legislative changes to mitigate such problems. We have offices in all the states. Some offices we have more than one, but at least we have one office in all the states, including Puerto Rico and DC as well. New York, we have four offices in New York alone. We have one in Brooklyn, we have one in Manhattan, we have one in Long Island, we have one in Albany, and we have one in Buffalo. So actually, it's five of us in the New York State. So whichever direction you go, you'll find us to provide assistance to you. We protect taxpayers' rights to ensure that taxpayers are being treated fairly and they understand their rights under the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. We help taxpayers where system has failed to operate as intended, or all efforts by the taxpayers to resolve their issue with IRS has also failed. When you come to us, we will help you navigate through all the processes and will help resolve your issue. One great thing about taxpayer advocate services, when you come to us, your case is assigned to an individual case advocate who will be working with you from the beginning to the end of your issue. The individual will provide you next contact dates, the estimated completion date, and we'll follow up with you periodically. And if you have any additional questions or something else came up, You reach out to the individual that is working with you and will help you with that particular additional issues that has come up. So that is the neat about that is a very, very important part of our program. Unlike IRS, when you call the main IRS, you get to talk to somebody different anytime you call. Our service is a little different from that angle. You'll be assigned an individual who will work with you throughout the whole process. And that is a very good feeling because if you have any additional questions or something else come up, you know who to call to talk to, to help you with the process. You can contact us by calling our national intake line is 1-877-777-4778. Again, our national intake line is 877-777-4778. For the local office in Brooklyn, you can reach us 718-834-2200. 718-834-2200. And for fax, you can reach us through 855-818-4818. Again, the fax number is 855-818-4818. And so this is much more of our general overview and how to contact us and how we can help you. When it comes to nonprofit specific, just like any other task issue, when you have issues pertaining to any penalty, i.e., you didn't file your 990 on time and you are late and you get charged for penalty or whatever the case may be, that you need assistance from us, we will definitely work with you to look at the whole situation, request work with IRS to see how best they can abate your penalty. And so, with speaking of filing and penalty, let me mention a few things in terms of the timeline to file those 990 forms. My colleague that spoke just mentioned about different types of 990. Have your 990, 990 Easy, and the 990 BL, and the 990 PF. All those have the same due date. So if you operate on a calendar year, meaning the end of year for you is December 31st, you have to file your return by May 15th. So that means you have 5 months and a half to file your 990, which is May 15th. If you need any extension and you requested extension to file, then it will take you to November 15th. That is if you're operating on a calendar year. Also, 990 is not a taxable form. It's informational form. So that is something that you don't have to pay anything unless you file late. That's when you get hit with penalties. So if you're operating on a fiscal year calendar, meaning you are operating other than December 31st, then you calculate 5 months and a half. For example, so if your calendar fiscal year ends in November 30th, you have until April 15th the following year to file. And then if you request extension, you're granted a 6 months extension, and that will take you to October 15th. So that is one thing that you want to make sure that you remember when to file. And you want to make sure you file. And if for whatever reason you cannot file, then make sure you file an extension. That way you are covered. 990 is not a return that you have to pay anything on. It's an informational return. So you can save yourself a few bucks there by making sure you file on time or request an extension to file. We always make sure that taxpayers are aware of the extension. Under normal circumstances where you have to file and pay, those extensions are only limited to the extension to file, not paying. Whereas 990 is only informational. So you are going to be in a good shape when you file an extension. One common question that come up a lot is, oh, I'm a nonprofit. I don't pay taxes. That is true. That's only dealing with the entity as a nonprofit. But if you have employees, you are still subject to pay or to file 941s, which is your payroll taxes, and you want to file them on time. You may be required to file um, federal tax deposits. You want to make sure you take up all those things when they are due, because that has nothing to do with the entity's 501c charter. When you have employees, you're subject to have 941 requirements, which is a payroll taxes. So you want to make sure you adhere to that and file when those times come. If you run into any challenges, whether it's the 1023, which is your initial application, being processed and is over delayed and you want our assistance, you can come to us and we'll work with you to navigate through the process, work with IRS to find out what the issues are and how those documentation or the paperwork that you have filed can be processed expeditiously so you can have your exemption status. We can assist in that area. Now, if you don't file your 990 for 3 years or 3 consecutive years, you'll be subject to automatic revocation. My colleagues mentioned that in the earlier presentation. You want to make sure you avoid that. By all means, if you run into any problem with that, and you try to get them to reinstate you, try to get IRS to reinstate you, and there are issues involved with that, definitely you can contact us and we'll work with you with the IRS to make sure that you get reinstatement done. So those are some of the services that we provide to nonprofit organizations. Now, any other tax-related issues that you may have, whether you are the owner, you're the president, you are individual taxpayer, we can assist in those areas as well. Or any other businesses that you may have that may not be a 501c3 entity or nonprofit entity. We can help in numerous areas. Any issues we have with IRS, our service is limited with IRS, which means we only deal with administrative issues with IRS. But if your case have to go to tax court for whatever reason, there's also low income tax clinics that work with individuals that may not have a whole lot of money in their process. It's also free or very minimal cost to you, depending on when they triage your case and they look at your financial situation, but it is nothing compared to you hiring an attorney or CPA from the private world. So LITC is also available to assist. They do have attorneys and staff that will be able to take your cases to tax court for you. And in some instances, we work hand in hand with them. They refer cases to us and we also refer cases to them. So you have all these resources available to you, whether your case will have to go to a tax court or your case can be worked administratively, with taxpayer advocate and IRS coming together to get you the answers that you need or to resolve the situation for you. So we are there. We ask that you spread the good news about what we do. We ask that you share this information with other people that may need our services. And again, it don't matter. Individuals, businesses, you name it, we provide our services to you for free and we don't charge anything. You can reach us. I mentioned my local number, 718-834-2200, and we are there to help. Again, just like any IRS departments, we're also hiring. So you can go to USA Jobs and you can see several announcements out there. If you are interested in working for taxpayer advocate, or even IRS to in general, you go to usajobs.gov and you can see several openings out there that you can apply. And then you go through the process. And if you get hired, you are in with taxpayer advocate or you are in with the IRS. Again, we have language interpretation services available too. So if you come to us, whether you speak English or you speak other language, we will have a way to assist you. And we are there to help you. We are there to work with you from the beginning to the end. And we are there to make sure that you are being treated fairly, you know. And so that is in a nutshell everything about taxpayer advocate that I'll present to you today. We also have our own website. You can go to www.taxpayeradvocates.irs.gov and you can read more about us as taxpayer advocate and what we do. We also have it in Spanish as well. https es taxpayeradvocate.irs.gov. And so if you want to read about us in Spanish, you can. If you want to read about us in English, you can also do that. So we have you covered in every grounds. Any issues with IRS, come to us. We'll work with you to resolve the issue. And the good news is it's free. You don't pay anything. We work hand in hand with the congressional offices as well. And you can come to us directly too. So you have a choice. You can go to the congressional office or you can come to us directly And either way, you'll be given the same quality service that you deserve as a taxpayer, and we'll work with you to resolve the issues that you have with IRS. Thank you very much. And I'll yield the floor back to Orlando.
Thank you, Mr. Adjuti. This was a very informative conversation. So we're going to be bringing now Miss Brenda Luke. She is also with the Tax Advocacy Program. Miss Luke does live in our community and she has a wealth of knowledge to share. I'm going to bring her to the stage. Miss Luke, the floor is now yours.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Brenda Stewart Luke. I am a senior stakeholder liaison in at the Internal Revenue Service. And as a senior stakeholder liaison, we establish relationships with the community boards, nonprofits, small businesses, and we do this through taxpayer education. So we are involved in outreach. So if you're interested in having myself and my coworkers, two of us that covers the state of New York, to come to your area to do a presentation about some of the topics that's applicable to you, especially as a small business, a nonprofit, or filing season, any of these applicable topics, we can do a virtual presentation as well as face to face. And we partner with the district liaison as well as the taxpayer advocate. So, but we represent the small business community, the community board leaders. We represent the limited English proficient. We also represent the underrepresented communities. We are your voice and we are there to help you as well. And I also like just as a to go along with what Brian as well as George said, the 800 number that Brian shared with you about the nonprofit is really helpful. They will help you walk through the process. So it is important for you to keep that 800 number available because if you have any questions that you have that you might be afraid to ask individuals, that the customer service number will be able to help you. I would suggest calling early in the morning so that you're not on hold. But even with the filing the return, if you have issues in filing the return, but just remember that May 15th is the deadline and you would want to get that out as soon as possible. But basically, I thank you so much, and Representative Clarke, for inviting me, as well as taxpayer advocate, as well as the district liaison. But again, please keep us in mind that we are there to help you, the community leaders, as well as faith-based, the school districts, stakeholder liaison is here to help you as well. I turn it back over to Orlando.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate all the information. Just want to reiterate that we are here to serve. I have dropped in the chat box various links that were covered throughout this particular communication. If you log in, you will see information for charities and nonprofits from the IRS. We have also information on the tax guide for churches and religious organizations, and also the taxpayer advocacy link. Are there any other final words or conversations that any of you guys might want to leave the nonprofits with? Because I'm not seeing too many questions coming in through right now, but I would we'll start with Ms. Brenda Luke.
Just in the event that any of the church organizations, which I am responsible for doing presentations with the church organizations and the community boards, if they're interested in having a face-to-face or virtual event, please feel free to reach out. They can reach out to you or to Brian, and that way they're able to have me virtually or face-to-face.
Great. So the next, we have maybe one question. I don't know if anyone might be able to handle it, and probably if they cannot, we will refer to the appropriate sources. Mr. Adjuti, and I just wanted to maybe if you can weigh in on this. Should a minister report income taxes as an employee or as a self-employee? Would you be able to handle that question?
Well, that depends on the contract that the minister have with the church. Some ministers are freelancers or they are independent contractors with a particular church. And so if that is the case, then that arrangement will mean that they will get 1099 at the end of the year. However, if the church employed them as an employee, then of course the church will be responsible for filing the 941s to cover that minister. And at the end of the year, that minister will get W-2 to file taxes just like anybody else would do. So, whichever direction it goes, it depends on the arrangement that they have with the minister. Now, one difference is when the minister is being considered as an employee and W-2 is going to be filed on his or her behalf at the end of the year. Normally, during the time of when he or she get paid, taxes are withheld. FICA is withheld. So at the end of the year, they already have contribution towards that already through the employer or through the church that has employed them as an employee. And now, if the person is considered a 1099 person or freelance or independent contractor, then they are going to be responsible for paying everything, the taxes and the FICA at the end of the year. So there is some information that I can provide to respond to that question. They have to make sure that they go with what works for them. And also, there are some few criteria for somebody to be either independent contractor or employee. If the church regulate the hours of which the minister have to operate and things like that, then most likely that a minister will be considered as an employee.
Thank you. So I'm going to we have just two more that came in. I mean, if anyone can handle it, well, they can. If not, we will come back to them at a later date and time with more information. If anyone can answer this one, should a minister report Social Security taxes as an employee or as a self-employee? And I believe that you might have already communicated that, but I'll just throw it out to the team.
I think George already covered that extremely well. What it really boils down to is the specific facts and circumstances of each arrangement. Sometimes the ministers are treated as employees, sometimes they're treated as self-employed individuals. What I will say is in all those resource documents we provided, there is a whole separate subset of guidance specifically for ministers and employees of these organizations. So you may need to go there to find out what exactly correlates to your situation. And when in doubt, call the number. If you can't find it on the web or you're having trouble there, and we have a publication on it again that addresses the rules for ministers when they have to pay the Social Security and not. And then there's other exceptions. It's like the English language. There's always exceptions to the rules where they may not be liable for Social Security and Medicare. You have to go into it and call that number if you need additional guidance. And
Great. So we're gonna wrap it up. It's coming down to the wire. This was an amazing series of events for our IRS Tax Tuesday. Mr. Adjeti, we would like you to give your final remarks.
My final remarks is anytime you have any issue with IRS that you cannot resolve, remember Taxpayer Advocate is there to assist you. Our service is free and we do not have any income eligibility. So you can be someone who make $1,000 or you can be someone who make $1 million. And that's not make any difference. We are there to assist you, to help you to navigate through the process, and above all, to make sure your rights are being protected. And so, come to us if you need our help. We are there to help you, and we will be there to take you through the process from the beginning to the end. Thank you.
Great. And now I would like Mr. Brian Wozniak to please give his final remarks.
Very similar to both George and Brenda. Use the resources here. I will say with the Taxpayer Advocate, they are there. They're a valuable resource. But hopefully deal with it up front. Figure out what you have to do when you're in doubt. Come to the IRS. Let us try to help you. You have a tremendous amount of resources, all those online webinars and videos, the phone number, all the different sites. But if something does go wrong, you do have that fail safe to go to the Taxpayer Advocate and they can help you. get things resolved. So
Thank you. Thank
try to
you.
stay current with what you need to get done.
Thank you. So, again, I want to thank everyone for participating in this most important event regarding IRS. We're going to now just do one more round of communications as pertaining to events that are happening in the district in case people have missed the announcement. I'm going to do it one more time. So, again, we will be having an Academy night that will be May 1st with St. Francis College. We will be working with the House Democratic leader, Mr. Hakeem Jeffries, Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez, and Congressman Dan Goldman. And we'll be talking about learning about Services Academy nominations, processes, and other opportunities for our young people to be to enter into the Service Academy, whether it be West Point, the Naval Academy, Air Force, or the Coast Guard. In addition to that, Congresswoman Clarke will be launching a series of meet and greet listening tour throughout the district in collaboration with many of our community-based organizations, specifically Community Board 8. We will be communicating and having an event on May 3rd on Wednesday, and it will be at the Crown Heights apartment area at 1055 St. John's Place. That's in the Crown Heights area of Brooklyn. We will also be doing a listening tour for Community Board 14 at Brooklyn College. That will be Thursday, May 4th from 6 to 8 p.m. We will also be doing an event with Community Board 9 at Major Owens on Thursday, June 29th from 6 to 8 p.m. That will be a listening tour for there. And we will now also be doing one with Community Board 18, PS 251. It will be the location at the Patagot School from 6 to 8 p.m. If you live in any of these areas, please come out with your questions or your comments or your concerns with regarding federal issues as it impacts you on a local level. Again, on behalf of Congresswoman Yvette Clarke's office, on behalf of the member, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, it was a pleasure communicating this timely resources from the IRS regarding issues that might be impacting you on a local level. Have a great day, stay safe, and stay blessed.